Welcome to the YanBar Podcast. Bryan Barcelo, host of this episode. Today's guest, Bobby Newman. Hey, Bobby. Thank you for agreeing to do this podcast.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Great. Hey, check this out. Tell people who you are, more and what you do.
Well, my name is Bobby Newman. I am a certified drug counselor as well as a intervention professional, also prevention specialist. And what I do is I go out and help families who have loved ones that are addicted to drugs or alcohol, help them find treatment programs and help them get their loved ones to agree to treatment. I also help people who are struggling with addiction, drug or alcohol addiction, to find the right treatment program.
Oh, that's cool. Now, how long have you been doing this?
Oh, I've been doing it over 21 years. I actually, after completing my own program 21 years ago, I decided to get into prevention, where we go out and talk to kids about drugs, and then it led into other things. And after setting up 2 prevention programs, I then went on into doing interventions. Treatment centers would need people that, trying to get their loved ones into treatment. So I kind of got thrown into it, and I developed a knack for it. And obviously working with other professionals, I learned the do's and don'ts, and kind of developed my own method of effectively getting people into treatment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the idea of they say prevention. What is that? Ounce of prevention worth a pound of cure.
Yeah, yes, sir. It's a lot harder to keep somebody from doing drugs than it is to get them off drugs.
Now check this out. I'm familiar somewhat with the 12-step program, the Blue Book. And what I was curious about the Efficacy, how effective is the Blue Book or the 12-step programs?
Well, the 12-step program, I know a lot of people that have had their lives changed due to the 12-step program. Some of my friends are sponsors. Some of the treatment centers that I work with use the 12-step method, or some a portion of it that may not compose their entire program, but it's a component. So fundamentally, it's good for fellowship. It's also there's parts about it that, taking a moral inventory, making amends to those that you've wronged, and accepting responsibility, things like that really resonate with a lot of people. And it's, one of the things about it is the fellowship and being part of a group that's trying to improve yourself. So those things fundamentally are positive steps towards recovery, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Now, what you offer, does that have anything to do with this 12 steps?
It does. I mean, not necessarily in the beginning, because, getting somebody into treatment is, just there's a process to do that. But but a lot of the programs that I use the 12-step method. So with that, so it's not in the beginning stages, but after they get to treatment, they get through detox, then they start, implementing the 12-step approach.
Mm-hmm. Now, when people, first of all, how do people contact you? How do they get to your services? How do they find out about you?
They can reach me at 866-989-4499, or they can go to my website at newmaninterventions.com, which is NEWMAN interventions.com.
Mm-hmm. And be sure to place all of that in the descriptions.
Okay.
Okay. Now, just when somebody comes to you, what's one of the first things that you do to work with them? Do you actually have like see on TV, where you have family members gather around a person? It seems like they're ambushed, and you have family members gather around. Is it something like that you do?
Well, there's the different types of interventions that are employed, and a lot of times most of the time the person who's addicted is, if you were to sit down and say, hey, I want you to come over and talk to you about going to treatment, that person most of the time is not going to show up. So you have to use whatever means you can to get the person in an environment to which you can actually communicate how you feel. And that the intervention show is a good way of kind of getting an idea of what an intervention is about, but there's a lot more that goes into it than just what you see on the TV. And also the other thing to keep in mind is they're wanting those dramatic effects. So not all, and so they're going to show you these situations that were quite dramatic. And an intervention is dramatic. Get me wrong, but it's also the majority of the time, if we approach the person in the right manner, they will accept help without it being going off the deep end. Now, one of my mantra is we always hope and pray for the best, but we prepare ourselves for the worst case scenario, because this is addiction. This is something that will kill the person. It is very powerful. And it's so as a family, we work to develop a plan that will be very thorough in the process. And again, most of the time we don't have to go to consequences of, and we're not going to go in there and, tell them how bad of a person they are. We're not going to go in there and tell them, gang up on them. We hope to alleviate that feeling of, being, ambushed, like you say, because that is a common, thing in philosophy. And so a lot of times family members don't feel like they feel like they're betraying the person by doing that. And the truth is that the person is not thinking correctly. They're influenced by drugs and alcohol, their entire outlook and reality on life, and their lifestyle is crazy. So you have to understand that you're not dealing with a rational person. And so for the greatest good for that person, just to get in front of them is very important. So you have to use whatever means that you can. And unfortunately, that them not knowing that there's going to be an intervention is pretty much the fundamental thing that has to happen. Now, I have walked into interventions where they knew we were coming, and it's always a great sign. If somebody knows that there's going to be, the family's going to sit down and talk to them, and they're willing to sit down and talk, then that's a great sign. It's almost like we're halfway there already. And once we just now have to get the agreement to show the person how going into a program is going to help them achieve what they want. Because a lot of times people will say, oh, I want help, but I don't want to go into a program. And the fundamentally, if you can explain to them that, look, if you're going to stay around the same people in the same environment doing the same things, you can go to the best counselor in the world, and as soon as you come back into that environment, you're going to have the same, what they call triggers. You're going to have those same things. People are going to do the same things. The same people are going to be around. You're going to have the same sight, sound, smells, friends, everything else that's going on. And so it's really, really, really hard to have success in that environment. And if you're not willing to make a change to overcome something that could cost you your family, your health, your freedom, your life, then the likelihood you're going to have any success is not that great too. I mean, there's a number of reasons that we just lay it out for the person and say, okay, well, you could go to outpatient, but here's what happens. Here's how it works. Here's the statistics. And getting out of the area, getting away from the common stomping grounds or environment is a therapeutic thing in and of itself. Out of the environment, get the person some rest and relax, get them to just relax for a minute, and then give them some education and some counseling to find out what's going on so they can get some traction on this. And I'm giving you a long answer, but
that's fine. Important.
That's one, I won't even recommend. I mean, somebody, most of the time, if they're looking for a treatment program and they want to go to a treatment program, right, and they want to do an intervention, and they want to go, oh, we want to keep him close because we want to go and visit. Well,
I see.
That's not the thing. Well, we want him to have family support. Well, he's got family support now, and that's not the thing that's going to save his life.
Yeah, so, you're right. I've been taught about people, places, and things.
Yeah.
And you're right. You want to try to get away from those things that caused you to use. Tell me something, Bobby. If you could you walk us through what a typical intervention would entail? Like, how do you open up with that when somebody walks in like, surprise? How do you handle something like that?
Well, it's like there's basically what I call 6 steps to an intervention. There's the deciding that you're going to do something for your loved one, regardless of the pushback that you get from your family members or friends that'll say, oh, you don't do this, they don't work, which again, about 90% of the time they do. And that's across the board with any type of environment. Whether I've gone out and find people on the street that the family hasn't seen in 2 years and got them to go to treatment, or the guy who's living at home and has got the wife and kids that are fed up and ready to walk out the door if he doesn't change his ways. And he, it's being a good guy. He doesn't want that to happen. So he's willing to go to, so there's the different scenarios, but you have to decide that you're going to, I'm going to do everything when this is over. I've done everything I can to help my loved one, and it still doesn't give success. So that's the decision is number one. Number two is planning. You're going to plan when it's going to be, who's going to be involved. You want to make sure that you have people on your team that are going to work with you, and you're going to operate as a unit. You're going to do this as a unit because it's going to take a group, and then so you're going to plan when it's going to be, where it's going to be, who's going to be involved, all the planning stage. And once you do that, then you prepare. We write written letters of communication to him, and whether this gives an opportunity for the family to tell how they feel, how much they love the person, how much the person means to them, and how this is affecting themselves, as well as what they'd like to see happen for the future. Now, this doesn't contain a threat. If you don't go to treatment, we're going to not have anything to do with you. It just tells the person how much this is how we feel and what you mean to us. And so that's the preparation, and we prepare for any objections the person's going to have. We prepare for any reaction the person's going to have. Anyone. We go over all the scenarios, and then we hope to we basically gauge what this person feels like their problem is. A lot of times people will feel like it's not drugs and alcohol that's the problem; it's something else. It could be, lack of self-esteem. It could be loneliness. It could be, learning how to deal with people. It could be, I want a relationship. I want to have a family. I mean, so you can help that. If I could help you with that, would you be interested in getting help? Yeah, I would. Okay, great. First thing we need to do is get you off the drugs and alcohol.
Yeah, tell me something, Bobby. How can you tell if a person is just in denial? And then they say, oh, it's not the drugs and alcohol is my problem. It's something else. How do you know if they're in denial or not?
Well, they'll tell you most of the time it's not. And usually a lot of times they'll say, oh, it's mom or it's dad or it's my sister, it's my family. I mean, okay, well, what are they doing that's causing a problem? Well, they won't leave me alone. Well, what do you mean they won't leave you alone? Or I had a kid out in Hawaii once that went and stole a car from his family and then drove it down the road into a telephone pole, high on drunk and high on Xanax. And we sat down to do the intervention, and he said, I don't have a drug problem. I'm like, okay, how's your life going? He said, well, it sucks. Okay, well, what sucks about your life? And he says, well, I can't stand people. I said, well, there's a lot of people out there I can't stand either, but I can't go and drive my car into a telephone pole on purpose as a solution to that. We got to learn how to deal with that. Yeah. And he looked at me and he said, how can you help me with that? I said, and I started telling him how this particular program he was going to go into would help him. And he became very interested. And he said, I can't, and when people say things like that, they're actually being very honest. They're trying to figure it out, but then they want to start bargaining with you to say, oh, I can solve it this other way. I can do it this other way. Right. I can do it this way, or I can do that way. Well, they don't know what they don't, their solution to solve that problem was doing drugs. So they're not that they're dumb or anything. Most of the people that I deal with are very intelligent, very capable people. And quite frankly, I've become friends with a lot of them that have that I've done interventions on. But we just have to go in there and find out what they feel is ruining their life. And it could be drugs and alcohol. It could be something else. It could be a negative person in their environment. It could be, something. So we hope to, and that's part of the process of, going through the 6 stages is planning, or the deciding, planning, preparation, executing, and then introducing the consequences. If during the intervention, we say, look, I don't have to go to treatment. You can't make me go to treatment. I said, no, we can't. We can't make you go to treatment. The program won't even take you if you're not willing to be there. There's not a jail. It's not so you have to be willing to sign up for it. But if you choose to, and after considerable effort, I'm talking considerable effort, sometimes several hours, maybe even a couple of days, then we would work out, here's the consequences of you not going to get help, if you're not changing your life, not taking the steps to change your life. And what's, the consequences generally are the enabler, whoever that is, then there's always an enabler of some sort, 99% of the time, to stop doing that. And the family's basically going to put them at a distance. They're never going to disown them. That's a tall order, right? But they can put them at arm's length. Most of the time the family members have been contacting the person consistently for days, or the person will contact them. There's this constant communication. Well, if that's cut off, that's actually a therapeutic thing that would motivate the person to change too. I've done it in interventions where, like, on the second day, the person's refusing to go get help, and they're off in the wind. The family doesn't know what they are, and they can keep reaching out. I said, stop reaching out. Stop reaching out to them. Stop trying to chase them around. They're obviously going to keep running from you if you're continuing to chase them. Mm-hmm. If you start pulling back, you're more likely to pull them back in, because they really don't want that line to be cut. So we can manipulate that situation based on that relationship. Anyway, and then you carrying that out, if the smaller percentage of people, like less than 10%, maybe even 5 to 7% of the people, it comes to the stages of actually having to, play what I call play the long game, meaning it could take weeks or even months for this person to finally come back to the family, because I'm going to go couch hop. Well, they'll go couch hop with their friends, and they do to the friends what they've been doing to the family. The friends aren't going to put up with it. I don't care if they've grown up since childhood. They're going to be like, get out of here. I don't want that, So, and then eventually they're going to circle back to where, they know they can get support or money or whatever it is, and right back to the family. And I've got many stories where these particular situations, I've had to tell people when they leave. I had a kid in Arizona once, rode off on a skateboard. And he said, I don't want my family to feel bad. That's why I'm leaving. I said, well, you think leaving is going to make them feel better? They're going to be worried sick. Mm-hmm. Look at, they're in there pouring their hearts out to you, and you're just going to ride off. That's drugs talking, right?
Mm-hmm. I was about to say that. Sounds like that stinking thinking that a lot of addicts have.
Yeah. It was definitely drugs. And well, he circles back, and I told the family, I said, you're actually, after a week or 2 weeks, or I don't remember how long it was, the mom was calling me, and I said, just hold tight. Just hold tight. He's going to call. He made his way all the way from Arizona to California, and all the way up the coast of California to the Bay Area. And then he came back down and ended up in LA, and he called his mom. He said, I'm shoeless. I don't have any shoes. I don't have any money. I'm on the streets of LA. And she was going to send him money for shoes. I said, no, you don't. We called a treatment center out there, and they went and picked him up and took him to treatment.
Excellent. So we're talking about rock bottom here.
Yeah. You're bringing the bottom to them.
Oh, really?
You're basically, if they've never allowed to suffer the consequences of their decisions, they're likely not going to get help. And I'm speaking from personal experience. Mm-hmm. So we bring the bottom to them, hopefully, to prevent the hospital or the jail or the death that's coming their way.
Right. Yeah. Jails, deaths, institutions, or something like that. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And I love that concept, bringing the bottom to them. Never heard of that before. That's good stuff.
Well, if you got mom and or dad or whomever constantly bailing you out, providing food and shelter, you're not, I don't have a problem. Well, they don't have a problem. They can keep up the lifestyle, and they don't have to worry about anything. So let's, again, we're going to ask them very nicely and in a caring manner, tell them how much we love them. And if they choose not to, then they say, well, okay, well, you don't have to go to treatment, but we now have a decision to make, because we don't want addiction in our life. Mm-hmm. We don't want it in our life. We want it out of our life. And you're never going to love the addiction out of somebody. I mean, you can, obviously you're never going to, and I want to clarify that. I've had people love people. It's what we call in the intervention world, loving somebody to death. Literally loving them to death, because you're going to keep feeding them and clothing them, and they're going to keep doing drugs. and I love this person. I can't, well, you're not helping them by doing that. You're making it, if you're not creating a scenario to where it's going to motivate them to change by whatever, then you're not helping them. You're making it. It's kind of like this. If you have a 5-year-old who doesn't know how to tie his shoes, you keep tying his shoes for him. Is he ever going to learn how to tie his shoes? No, he's not. He's got.
Why should he?
Yeah, why should he? He's got somebody tying him for him. So
Exactly.
that's the philosophy. It's like it goes into even adulthood, and they got to stop. And if you're I'll tell people before. I've been an addict, and I had a family member. It's not their fault. I'm just saying they did the same things. They would bail me out of every mess that I created. And, I don't blame them for that. I'm just saying they did it. And when they stopped doing it, that's when I decided to change.
Understood. Now, notice in your bio, it had mentioned federal, perhaps federal time. I don't think that you did federal time, but it seems like it was on the table or something for you.
Oh, no, it was so close. I actually describe it. I get to thinking about it. It's so close. It's all the only way it would have been any closer is if they'd been chasing me down the street with the sirens on in the car. Because I had violated, I went in and I got arrested for 3 charges, possession of 2 drugs and a loaded firearm, concealed weapon, and then it's $100,000 each charge and 2.5 years each charge.
Ooh.
And they were looking at, so I went in into court. I was smart enough to negotiate down to 2 weeks and $2,500 in fines with 6 months probation without an attorney, right? Wow. So I did that, but then I was stupid enough to continue to use and violated 3 times. And they called me back into court, and that deal that they gave me, now they were they had the hammer. They showed it to me. They said, we're going to lower the boom on you, dude. If you have to come in this courtroom one more time, you're going to do prison time. And I said, okay. So my family came and met with me after I got out of jail, and they said, do you want to go to treatment? I said, no. I said, I know what I need to do. I need to stop hanging out with my friends. I need to go to work every day. I need, the things that I've heard 1,000 times since then. And then I went out and violated. I went about 2 weeks. I OD'd. I got arrested again. They didn't catch me with the drugs on me. And then I wrecked another car. Wow. And then I had to take another drug test that I was going to fail, which I did fail. But I went and checked myself into rehab at that moment. And I had a little window of time to where I could check myself in and call the probation office and say, hey, I'm in rehab. So they took my revocation papers and put them, revoking my probation, and said, okay, well, he's in rehab. So tell him, don't leave the rehab.
Wow. Yeah.
Stay there. And that's how close it came. And I look at that, I'm like, how stupid. It was just stupid. It was just dumb. I don't even, and I can look back at that and think, man, I was on thin ice. I was, yeah.
From what you just described, it seemed like the court was on 2 different sides of some things you just taught us. One was loving you to death. It seemed like the court was loving you to death by allowing you to go back out. But they also brought that bottom up to you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, it's funny because I had spent enough time with the jail that I was in, having to report to for federal probation. 80% of the people in there it was a big jail, and 80% of the people in there were going to prison. They were waiting on their time. So they were, convicts in there. They used these guys. There was murderers in there, and so I got a taste of what prison would be like. And I even had a guy tell me, he was a black guy, but he sat down and now in the environment, he said, no, trust me, if you end up in the big house with me, we won't be friends. We won't.
They segregate.
Yeah. He said, no, you'll have to, and you better join a gang because you won't be surviving there, and they're gonna come after you.
Wow.
They are. And he told me we were in the little trustee area. And we were just chit-chatting like, 2 people. But he said, when you get in there, it's a different game. And I'm like, man. And then the people that were in there, they don't have anything else going on in their life. It's just a different environment that I thought, so I was fortunate enough. I think was fortunate enough to get a taste of that, to where I'm like, I decided I don't want any part of that, because I'm not going to make it. I mean, I'm going to be in there and I'm going to fight my way out of it. I'm going to do whatever I can to fit my to and then I probably would do something stupid and
catch another charge.
get another charge, be in there a lot longer. And so I thought, so that was and some of my friends that never got in trouble, they didn't get that experience, and so they ended up doing like 10 years. Some of them got caught doing, they went up and they did 10 years in prison because they didn't, I was always getting in trouble. They never did. And then, but when they did, they got in major trouble, and there was no turning back for them. They didn't get the opportunity that I did.
Wow.
So.
You seems like you inadvertently got involved in another program, the Scared Straight program.
Yeah, you can say that. Yes, I did.
Hey, Bobby,
and I'm not ashamed to admit it.
Hey, whatever works, whatever it takes.
Yeah. I was scared of that,
Yeah, man. You know what? I mean, anybody in their right mind would think. Just when we were talking earlier, we touched on the gateway drugs, marijuana. A lot of people seem to think it's a pretty safe drug, but from what I understand, it leads or can lead, or oftentimes does lead to abusing way worse drugs, should I say? Well,
people will argue that point with me, and I'm not into arguing with people about it. I mean, kids will tell me, "Oh, you can't tell me that just because I smoke weed, I'm going to go on and do harder drugs." And I said, "You're right. I can't. I'm not going to try." I can tell you that a certain percentage of people will, like, if you consistently use marijuana. At the time when I was doing drug prevention a lot, which was about 16 years ago, it was about 22 to 23% of the kids that consistently smoke marijuana, statistically speaking, would go on to do harder drugs. And I don't know which one of it is. I can't say, oh, you're going to, and you're not. I just know out of 100 kids, 22, 23 of you consistently smoke weed, you're going to go on to do harder drugs. And I can also tell you that every person that has tried heroin or cocaine or methamphetamine and is heavily addicted started out with marijuana. It starts out with cigarettes, alcohol, marijuana, and then they'll go into something harder. And there's physical reasons for that. There's also mental or emotional reasons for that. So, and once you explain it to somebody, they go, oh, okay. And these physical things happen to everybody at the same time. I mean, not at the same time, but everybody consistently. It changes the neurochemistry of the brain. It changes your body handles toxins a certain way. It burns up nutrients that have side effects as a result. It contributes to depression or anxiety simply from the nutritional deficiencies that are created. You can take somebody that, there's certain nutrients that if you rob the person of those nutrients, they will create depression and anxiety simply from the physical effects. You can actually cause somebody to go into a psychosis by giving them not enough B1 or giving them too much B1.
Wow. Bobby, I just got notification from the Zoom folks. They said we got about 10 minutes. And check this out. As customarily on this podcast, I like to ask the guests, do you have say parting words or words of wisdom? Anything like to leave folks which you want to share with them?
I certainly do. I mean, I appreciate the conversation. There's a lot of things that, again, the wrong thing to do is nothing when it comes to your loved one. And even if you start out on a very minute gradient of saying, hey, I know there's a problem, do you have a problem or not? You don't want to be like the blame game or make the person feel bad, especially, or when it comes to your kids. You want to be a safe terminal for that. If your child feels like they're going to get in trouble or yelled at for something that they've done, regardless if it's a mistake or not, they're not going to come and tell you about it. They're going to shy away. They're going to hide it from you. But if they feel like that, hey, I can go talk to my mom or to my dad or my brother or whomever about it, and I can be they're a safe person to talk to, then that's always good. You always want to have an open communication line with the person. You always want to try to sit down and talk, not condescendingly or not, you just want to have a conversation and say, hey, this is how it is. and let them know that I'm here for you, regardless of what happens. I'm here for you. But you also have to be firm in your stance on your moral code. Your moral code needs to be strong, and you need to try to set a good, setting a good example means is even if you don't think that they're watching you, they are. They are watching you, and they're going to mimic you. So that's my anyway.
So thank you. And once again, your phone number and website, please.
My NewmanInterventions.com, NEWMAN with an interventions with an S on it.com, and then the number is 866-989-4499.
Cool. All right, one moment, Bobby. Everybody, once again, end of another podcast. Thank you for joining us, and be sure to check out our previous YanBar Podcast guests. Once again, it's Bryan Barcelo here with Bobby Newman, and thank you guys for joining us. Peace.